Book of Heaven, Volume 11. 8th to the 24th of March 1914. Page 71 to 78. March 8, 1914. The divine will centralizes all its goods and its divine work in those who live in it. The value of one single instant in the divine will. All that the soul who lives in the divine will experiences does not belong to her, but to Jesus within her. One who lives in the divine will cannot go to purgatory. Continuing in my usual state, my always adorable Jesus did not cease to speak to me, very often, about his most holy will. I will say that little which I remember. So, as I was not feeling well, blessed Jesus came and told me, "My daughter, the soul who lives in my will can say regarding everything I do, all this is mine." This, because the will of the soul who gave herself to me, is so much identified with my will that everything my will does, she does as well. As she lives and dies in my volition, there is no good which she does not bring with herself, since there is no good which is not contained in my will. My will is the life of all the good that can be done by creatures. Therefore, dying to this life, the soul in my will carries with her the masses which are celebrated, the prayers and the good works which are done, since all of them are fruits of my will. This is still very little, compared to the work of my will itself which the soul carries with her as her own. One instant of the work of my will is enough to surpass all the work of all creatures, past, present and future. As the soul dies in my will, there is no beauty that matches her, nor height, wealth, sanctity, wisdom or love. Nothing. Nothing can be compared to her, nothing equals her. As the soul who dies identified with my will enters into the heavenly fatherland, not only will the heavens' gates open, but the entire heaven will bow to welcome her into the celestial residence, to honor the work of my will which is in her. What can I tell you, then, of the feast and the surprise of all the blessed in seeing this soul completely marked by the work of the divine will, or, in seeing that all which this soul did during her life, having done everything in my volition, each saying, each thought, work, action, etc. are many suns which adorn her, each one different from the other for light and beauty. And in seeing in this soul many divine rivulets which will inundate all the blessed and flow also upon earth for the benefit of pilgrim souls, since heaven cannot contain them? Ah, my daughter, my will is the portent of portents. It is the secret to finding light, sanctity and riches. It is the secret of all goods, not yet intimately known, and therefore not appreciated or loved as it deserves. You appreciate it, love it, and make it known to those whom you see disposed. Another day, being in suffering, I felt like I was unable to do anything, so I felt oppressed. And Jesus, hugging me, told me, "My daughter, do not worry yourself. Try only to be abandoned in my will, and I will do everything for you." One single instant in my will is more than all the good you could ever do in your entire life. I also remember that another day he told me, "My daughter, one who really does my will, in everything which occurs within her, both in the soul and in the body, in all that she feels and suffers, can say, 'Jesus suffers, Jesus is oppressed.' In fact, everything that creatures do to me reaches me in the soul who does my will, in whom I dwell. Therefore, if the coldness of the creatures reaches me, my will feels it, and since my will is the life of that soul, consequently, the soul feels it too. So, instead of troubling herself over this coldness, as if it were her own, she should remain around me to console me and repair for the coldness that the creatures send to me. In the same way, if she feels distractions, oppressions and other things, she must remain around me to relieve me and repair, as if they were not her own things, but mine. Therefore, the soul who lives from my will feel many different pains, according to the offenses that I receive from creatures, but in a sudden way and almost in one leap. On the other hand, she will also feel indescribable joys and contentments. And if she must take care to console me and repair for the first, she must delight in the joys and contentments. Only then does my will find my interest. Otherwise it would remain saddened and unable to accomplish what my volition contains. Another day he told me, "My daughter, one who does my will can by no means go to purgatory, because my will purges the soul of everything. After keeping her jealously during her life, in the custody of my volition, how could I allow the fire of purgatory to touch her? At the most, she may lack some clothing, but my will, before unveiling the divinity, will clothe her with all that she may lack. Then, I reveal myself. March 14, 1914. As the soul who lives in the divine will fuses herself in Jesus, she takes possession of all that belongs to Jesus, and he cannot refuse her anything. Today I was fusing all of myself in Jesus, to the extent of feeling Jesus alive and real within me. As I was feeling him, he said to me in such a tender and touching way that I felt my poor heart crack, "My daughter, it is too hard for me not to content one who does my will. As you see, I no longer have hands, feet, heart, eyes, or mouth. I have nothing left of my will, since you took everything, you took possession of everything. I have nothing left which is not yours." This is why deserved chastisements are not being poured upon the many and great evils which inundate the earth, because it is hard for me not to content you. Further, how can I do that if I do not have hands? You don't believe me, do you? If hands were to be absolutely necessary to me, I would be forced to steal them from you, or to convince you so that you yourself would give them to me. How hard this is! How hard it is for me to displease one who does my will. I would displease myself. I remained astonished at this speaking of Jesus. Not only this, but I could really see that I had the hands, the feet and the eyes of Jesus, so I said to him, "Jesus, let me come." And he, "Give me a little more of life in you, and then you will come." March 17, 1914. One who does the divine will takes part not only in the external works, ad extra, of God, but also in the interior works, ad intra, of the three divine persons. Continuing in my usual state, my adorable Jesus continued to show himself inside me, in such a way that I possessed all his limbs. He looked so content that, appearing unable to contain this joy, he told me, "My daughter, one who does my will takes part in the actions, ad intra, of the divine persons. This privilege is reserved only to one who does my volition, to take part not only in all of our works, ad extra, but to pass from these to the works, ad intra. This is why it is hard for me not to content one who lives in my volition. Being in my will, the soul is in the intimate part of our heart, of our desires, of our affections and thoughts. Her heartbeat, her breath and ours are one. Therefore, the joys, the pleasures, the glory and the love that she gives us are many and great, infinite in their way and nature, and in no way dissimilar to ours, because they are our own. Just as in our eternal love, one enraptures the other, one forms the joy of the other, to the extent that, many times, unable to contain this love and these joys we come out with works ad extra. In the same way, we remain enraptured and delighted by this soul who does our will. Therefore, how could we render unhappy the one who makes us so happy? How not love just as we love ourselves, not as we love the other creatures, the one who loves us with our same love? There are no curtains of secrets with this soul. Between us and her there is no ours and hers, everything is in common. We make of the soul, by grace, that which we are by nature, impeccable, etc., so that no disparity may exist between us. And as we come out with works ad extra, being unable to contain our love, in the same way, unable to contain the love of the soul who does our will, we make her come out from ourselves, pointing her out to the people as our favorite one, our beloved. Only for her and for souls similar to her, do we let goods descend upon earth, and only for love of these souls do we preserve the earth. Then, we enclose this soul within ourselves in order to enjoy her, because just as we, the divine persons, are inseparable, the soul who does our will becomes inseparable from us. March 19, 1914. The soul who diffuses herself in the divine will forms the delight of the most holy Trinity. It seems that blessed Jesus wants to speak about his most holy will. I was diffusing myself throughout all his interior, in his thoughts, desires, affections, in his will, in his love, in everything, when Jesus told me with infinite sweetness, "Oh, if you knew the contentment that one who does my will gives me, your heart would break with joy." See, as you were diffusing yourself in my thoughts, desires, etc., you were forming the delight of my thoughts, while my desires, fusing in yours, were playing together with them. Your affections, united to your will and to your love, running and flying into my affections, into my will and into my love, were kissing one another, and pouring like a rapid rivulet into the immense sea of the Eternal One. They were playing with the divine persons, now with the Father, now with me, and now with the Holy Spirit. Then, wanting to give no time to one another, we play with her, all three together, making of her our own jewel. This jewel, our delight, is so dear to us that we keep it with jealousy, ad intra, in the intimate part of our will, and when the creatures embitter us and offend us, in order to be cheered, we take our jewel, and we amuse ourselves together. March 21, 1914. Jesus cannot contain himself from manifesting, though little by little, his love, graces and goods, which he gives to the souls who does his will. He does not exaggerate. Jesus continues, "My daughter, I love one who does my will so much that I cannot manifest everything to her, or everything all at once, of how much I love her, the grace with which I keep enriching her, the beauty with which I keep embellishing her, and of all the goods with which I fill her. If I manifested this altogether, the soul would die of joy, her heart would burst in such a way that she could no longer live on earth, but, in a flash, would take off toward heaven. However, I feel an irresistible need to make myself known, as well as my love for her. It is too hard to love, to do good without making oneself known. I feel as if my heart were dying, and unable to resist so much love. I keep manifesting to her, little by little, how I love her and all the gifts with which I continue to fill her. And when the soul feels as if filled to the brim, to the extent of no longer being able to contain them, in one of these manifestations of mine she will disappear from the earth and will bloom within the womb of the Eternal One. And I, Jesus, my life, it seems to me that you exaggerate a little bit in manifesting to me what extent a soul can reach who does your will. Knowing my ignorance and smiling, Jesus told me, "No, no, my beloved, I do not exaggerate. One who exaggerates may be deceitful. Your Jesus doesn't know how to deceive you. Rather, what I have told you is nothing. You will receive more surprises when, once the prison of your body is broken and you are swimming inside my womb, the extent that my will made you reach will be openly revealed to you." March 24, 1914. One who lives in the divine volition becomes like another humanity of Jesus, the organ of the divine will. Continuing in my usual state, I was lamenting with Jesus who had not come yet. Finally he came and told me, "My daughter, my will hides my very humanity within itself. This is why, sometimes, I hide my humanity from you as I speak to you about my will. You feel surrounded by light, you can hear my voice but cannot see me, because my will absorbs my humanity within itself, since my humanity has its limits while my will is eternal and without limits. In fact, when my humanity was on earth, it did not cover all places, all times or all circumstances. However, my interminable will compensated for it and arrived where my humanity could not reach. So, when I find souls who live completely from my will, they compensate for my humanity, for the times, for the places, the circumstances and even for the sufferings, because they live in my will and therefore I can use them just as I used my humanity. What was my humanity, if not the organ of my will? Such are those who do my will.